All right, what's good, man? Let's get into it. You guys know I was going to make a video about this. And the new NFL rules are horrible for the game. And we're going to talk about the two main ones. Let me pull up the new rule changes that got announced yesterday and today. Some of the new things. First of all, let's just get some of these minor ones out the way that I really don't mind. The third challenge, proposal to the Lions, rules will allow for a third challenge to be successful. Will allow for a third challenge for following successful one. I don't mind it. I mean, I do think some of the challenges do need to be reviewed. Like, you know what I'm saying? New reviewable plays the league has expanded where they can use replay. Now that includes ruling that the quarterback was down or out of bounds, whether or not the play clock was expired before the snap. And I agree with this rule 100%. You know how many times this year the quarterbacks or the offense would be 0-0 on the play clock and they would never call it? It is beyond egregious. Beyond egregious. I'm so happy they have this rule. Now, I don't know if they're going to abuse it a lot, but I'm so happy they have this rule. And I hope more offenses get penalized because, as we're going to talk about now, the two main rules. The new kickoff rules. Now, I'm not going to go through this. Basically, if you read the new kickoff rules, no one can move besides the kicker kicking the ball, and the runner has a head start, and everybody can't run until the runner has the ball. I'm going to just keep it real with you. They're going to get rid of kickoff soon. They're getting rid of kickoff. For all the NFL, the real NFL fans, they're going to get rid of kickoff, man. It's going to suck. It's stupid. It's dumb. But especially with other leagues getting rid of it, like the XFL and the USFL and stuff, and the NFL, you know, being the leechers that they are, they're going to see it and be like, whoa, if they can prosper and do it, why can't we? So they're going to get rid of kickoff, and it sucks. Kickoff is listen, man. Here's my thing. And I'm going to say this. Number one, if you're going to get rid of kickoff, Devin Hester doesn't belong in the whole Hall of Fame then. His whole narrative is that he's the greatest kickoff returner ever. Well, if you're going to get rid of it, then you might as well kick him out. Anybody who's a great returner, you might as well kick them out. It's beyond stupid. Number two, kickoff is exciting. It's good. It's part of the game. Like, why are we changing the game so much? What, are you going to get rid of running the ball? Are you going to get rid of, passing the ball? You're going to get rid of PATs too? It is beyond stupid how – and people are saying, well, RJ, they're just changing the rules for kickoff. They've been talking about getting rid of kickoff for years, and I even said it on my stream. If you have guys like Shannon Sharp, he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer, I don't think, but he's a Hall of Famer. He's a big name in sports media, a big name in sports now. He's one of the greatest tight ends ever. And he's a guy who had he wouldn't have been in the NFL if it wasn't for special teams. And he's saying that he can understand why they want to get rid of it. If you have guys like that saying that, you don't think the NFL is going to take that in consideration? It's going to RIP kickoff, man. This is the beginning of the end. And let's talk about the main event here, the banishment of the hip drop tackle. Now, I want to specifically talk about this, and I have it right here on my phone. You have a lot. J.J. Watt. I think Micah, I keep forgetting how to pronounce the name. Parsons from the Cowboys. You have a lot of players coming out against the ban of the hip drop rule. A lot of defensive players saying basically, just go to flag football. At this point, just go to flag football. And, listen, shout out to my boy Val. I don't know if he's going to watch this video, but shout out to my boy Val. He brought up a good point saying, it's for player safety. And he's all for player safety. And, I'm all for that too. Obviously, I'm all for that. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, I don't want to see players get hurt. Like when Mark Andrews got tackled by that Logan Wilson bum from the Bengals, it was stupid. But I feel like that's what triggered it. I feel like that's what triggered this rule change is Logan Wilson, who's a known dirty player, has ruined it for the league. And I feel like that's BS. I really do feel like that's BS. You can tell when a player's dirty and when you can tell when a player's doing a tackle and he's just trying to tackle him. Like, prime example, I don't know whoever this guy is for the 49ers. I don't know who that is. He's clearly not trying to injure this guy. He's just trying to tackle him. Otherwise, you have Logan Wilson, who is a known dirty player, trying to injure people. He's going to try to injure people and use the hip drop tackle. Do I think it should be banned? I'm going to keep it real. No. Do I think there should be fines for people like Logan Wilson and Vontaze Burfict? First of all, you should just fine the Bengals linebackers because, they play for the Bengals and the Bengals suck. That's number one. Number two, anybody can tell when someone's a dirty player or not a dirty player. Vontaze Burfict, dirty. Logan Wilson, dirty. I'm trying to think. I can't think of anybody else. But someone like Ray Lewis or an Ed Reed or Fred Warner for the 49ers, they hit hard. They do hip drop tackles. Well, maybe not Ray Lewis because he was able to actually hit people in today's NFL. They're not dirty players. Myles Garrett, not a dirty player. He hip drop tackles. And I want to say this, right? And I want to bring up this point. We got to start looking at the NFL, how we look at boxing and how we look at UFC. As someone who loves boxing, I love boxing. Probably if boxing was as relevant as it is to basketball, it'd probably be my second. It probably is. It's like football's number one. Two is basketball or boxing, to be honest with you. If boxing was free, if it was cheap like basketball, boxing would be my second favorite sport. And basketball would be third. But at the same time, I love boxing. And someone who's really, really getting into the UFC. I love the UFC, man. I really do. We have to start looking at football the same way we look at boxing and UFC, where it's a violent sport. That's the whole narrative of football. Whether you like it or not, it's a violent sport. Is there nuance to football? Absolutely. 100%. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Anybody who's a real football fan who's been watching football for years, there's a nuance to it. It's a chess match. But when you talk to casuals, when you talk to people who don't watch football, they say it's a violent sport. And that's how it is, and that's how it should be. That's how it's always going to be. Now, am I saying we need to go back to like the 80s and 90s where dudes were slamming each other on their head? No. I'm saying the 2000s. The 2000s. I brought up Ray Lewis. The 2000s, from like 2000, I'll say from like 98 to 2000 and I'll say from like 2011-ish, 12-ish, before the concussion thing came out. That was the best era of football because you had great offenses like Peyton Manning's Colts and what's that Rams team? Oh my gosh, the greatest show on turf. And then you had defensive teams like the Steelers and Ravens who were gonna bust your head open and put them on the field. Let's see who wins. Sometimes the offense wins, sometimes the defense wins. And you have stable enough teams like, I don't know. I can't think of the time. Like the Patriots where they had a good offense and a good defense. The Bears, the 2006 Bears, all defense, going up against the Colts in the Super Bowl. Anybody who watched that Super Bowl and who's a football fan enjoyed that Super Bowl, unless you're a Bears fan. And by the way, shout out, my bad, Val. I didn't mean to bring that up. You know what I'm saying? He's a Bears fan, but you enjoyed that Super Bowl. But to go back to my original point, we got to start looking at the NFL like boxing and UFC, where if you watch, as someone who's a fan or someone who really loves to watch boxing and UFC, is there more nuance to boxing and UFC? Absolutely. Absolutely. But the whole narrative of boxing and UFC is violence. It's violence. As someone who's watched boxing, it's a chess match. It's a match. It's a matchup thing. And the same thing with UFC. And I'll be the first one to tell you, I'm going to keep it short and sweet. I'm literally getting into the UFC. So I'm a newbie when it comes to UFC. But when it comes to UFC, I can tell two different styles. I was watching Shane O'Malley versus Cheeto. They have two different styles. And if you watch the first fight to now, there's so much nuance of how these guys' games has progressed. And shout out to my boy Val for even telling me this too. But also, it's a violent sport. We have to look at football the same way. You have a lot of offensive teams, you have a lot of defensive teams. Let the defense have enough share just as much as the offense. And by the way, I don't know why you're making all these rule changes for the offense. Number one, when you have this horrible turf that they play on, injuring people. Number two, the offenses suck. All the offenses this year suck, besides Miami Dolphins and the Cowboys, but they suck against real teams. Stop changing the game. I'm all for player safety, and obviously I don't want players to get hurt, but you're ruining the game, man. But that's my thoughts. What are yours? RJ out.